morning, everyone. For those of you that might be joining from other regions, good afternoon or maybe good evening. And I just want to thank you for taking your time and joining us for this webinar. My name is Derek Melber, and I am the technical evangelist for the Active Directory Solutions team here at ManageEngine. And we will be providing many webinars over the next couple of months for different parts of the world. So hopefully if we come back to your region, you will join us again. We always try to pick topics that are enlightening and certainly things that most administrators, certainly all organizations really struggle with regard to Active Directory. And I think today's discussion is no different. We're going to be talking about how we can basically recover from accidents or things that occur in Active Directory where the object is no longer existing in Active Directory because it was deleted, or potentially just the object was modified and we need to restore the properties back to the original settings. So that's going to be our topic for today. Just to give you a little bit more information about me, as I said, my name is Derek Melber, and as some resources to give you, that is my email address, and please, I accept all emails. Myself and the rest of us on the Active Directory team blog quite a bit, and we always try to keep a pulse on what the questions are and what people are fighting with within the Active Directory world. So your questions really help us get an idea of what's going on and what your needs are. Also, we have a security hardening site, and if you go to our main web page, click on Active Directory, there'll be a drop-down menu that appears, and in the lower right-hand corner, we have a site dedicated to security around Active Directory and your domain controllers. The site is full of amazing information that the team has put together for you, and it's a one-stop shop for getting awesome information with regard to security. So please visit that site as well. I am an MVP. I've been an MVP for, gosh, I guess the better part of 16 years now, both in group policy and in Active Directory. I'm currently an Active Directory MVP, but I have gone back and forth. Probably stay in Active Directory with all my work with ManageEngine. What else? Oh, we have been touring the world, as you see, the list of different cities and countries that we've been to. And we are getting obviously towards the end of 2016, so we only have a couple of stops left. I'm actually in Amsterdam right now. I'm going to be doing some presentations at a local conference and then off to London. And we will be doing another world tour in 2017 with some more great information, really focusing a little bit on Office 365 and Azure and how that's going to impact your organization and how, again, you can be more efficient and secure in that environment. So I think that's enough about the logistics. Let's just jump into today's information. And with today's information, what I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about what you have with Active Directory recovery. And I want to focus on the Microsoft solution. I want to talk about where maybe there are some weaknesses or some things that are omitted from that solution. And then I want to show you quickly a solution that really covers all the ideal scenarios. So, what is Active Directory recovery? Well, I think we all can agree and understand that Active Directory is complicated. There are many moving parts in Active Directory. I do quite a few presentations on the idea of change monitoring in Active Directory because it's really difficult to know who's making changes in Active Directory, and it's imperative to be able to know. But on the other side of that, once a change is made, if the change isn't something that's desired, how do I go and recover from that? I mean, let's say that someone goes in and they think that a project is over, so they delete an organizational unit, all the groups and all the users that are in the organizational unit. That could be something that is very complicated to recover from. So we have to have an option that's easy, we have to have an option that's clear, and we have to have some way of being able to see what has actually been deleted in Active Directory. But it's not only about deletions, and I think this is where I want to spend some of my focus today, is getting you to understand the difference between a deletion and a modification. Now, obviously, you understand the difference between a deletion and modification, but I want you to see it within Active Directory. So I just gave you an example of maybe someone going in and thinking a project's over, so they delete an organizational unit. Well, what if someone is modifying properties of Active Directory users? I was actually in Italy last week, and there was someone in the seminar that tried to use PowerShell to modify the UPN suffix for users for their email address. And he had about 10,000 users, and about 500 users using the PowerShell command were modified, but they were modified incorrectly. So when you take something like that, it's not like he knew exactly all 500 users. He was using some kind of a query in PowerShell. But how do you quickly recover from that? Unfortunately, this gentleman didn't really have an Active Directory recovery solution in place, so it took him a couple of days to actually find all the users and go in and correct that information. But he had to do that manually. So these are two things that I really want to focus on: deletions and modifications. And it doesn't really matter if someone's doing this on purpose, if it's an error, it's an accident. It really doesn't matter, because as Active Directory administrators, our main goal, our main focus is just to make sure that things are correct so that everyone can gain access to the resources. So this is the idea of Active Directory recovery. And when things are changed, we need to be able to restore them, right? And we need to be able to get it back to a functioning level. So when we talk about this idea of recovery, it can't be just in part. It has to be in full. All the details need to be restored. If all the details aren't restored, then that means that someone, the administrator or the user, is going to have to put the rest of it back together. So whether we're talking about deletions or modifications, you have to be able to see what has been changed in order for you to fix what the problem is. So let's say, for example, that, let's take this gentleman from last week in Italy. The PowerShell command, maybe it modified more than just the UPN. So let's say that it went in and it modified the UPN suffix, maybe some telephone numbers, maybe some departments, maybe even some group membership for 500 users. And only the UPN was incorrect. If I look at a change monitoring system, or if I look at what's available for restoration, I have to clearly and easily be able to select only the UPNs for all those users. So I need a system that's going to allow me to do that. So we need more than just a broad stroke of paintbrush. We need a very detailed stroke of paintbrushes that we can go in and we can be very precise on exactly what we're restoring and what's actually changing. Now, if we look at the Microsoft solution, Microsoft has certainly gotten much better at this over the years. If you look back in Windows 2000 Active Directory, Server 2003 Active Directory, we didn't even have a recovery option. All we had was ntdsutil, and if we had a system state, we had to be very precise on what we were going to restore. We had to do reboots. There was a lot of issues. But starting around the 2008 time frame, really 2008 R2, Microsoft added the recovery options. Now, what's interesting about much of what Microsoft was focusing on is they had this disabled by default. So they knew that it was a need because, well, of course, they added in the functionality, but they didn't have it enabled. And we're going to talk more about that in just a minute. But they also had severe limitations. Now, you had to consider that this recovery option started in around the year 2010, so not too long ago. And in order for organizations to be able to take advantage of it, all the domain controllers had to be upgraded to server 2008 R2 or greater. So there was quite a bit of limitations because back in this time frame, I don't know if you remember, but not everybody was that willing to go to 2008 or 2008 R2, and part of that was because of Vista. And I know that Vista's the desktop and the server with 2008, but still there was this mindset that we were afraid to make the move. So there were a lot of things going against the recovery options that Microsoft had through the recycle bin. Now, if we talk about the 2008 R2 and how we could enable it, well, you had to enable it with PowerShell. There was no other option. And there was no GUI by default. So what I have for you here is, I just plucked these off of a blog post on someone that had actually posted what the PowerShell commands were. And this was the PowerShell command, the top one, for actually getting the recycle bin enabled. And then the second one is for you to be able to find something that has been modified. Now, I'm no PowerShell expert. Some of you might be PowerShell experts. But even if you're a PowerShell expert, I can't imagine that this syntax is something that's that obvious and something that you know. And the fact that I'm going to have to use PowerShell to find information that's been in the recycle bin, that just seems very complicated to me. There are too many things that are different inside of Active Directory. Now what I mean here is, you see here that there's a John Marlin that's being found and then restored. But what if it's John Marlin with an error that was typed? I talk about this quite a bit if I'm using PowerShell or the Microsoft tools. It's very easy to make mistakes in typing, so users' names could be incorrect. Users could have hyphens. Users could have, ticks like O'Brien's or juniors or seniors. It becomes very complicated, and if I don't have the object to look at in Active Directory, how do I know what to look for to restore it? So obviously Microsoft needed something different, and they actually produced something different. So in 2012, R2, Microsoft has an Active Directory Administrative Center, and I've basically taken a screenshot here from the Administrative Center on how you enable the recycle bin. So now Microsoft has a GUI that allows you to enable the recycle bin and also allows you to, in essence, be able to see what you're looking at, so you don't have to use PowerShell anymore. And this just gives you an idea of, yes, PowerShell is powerful, but it becomes a limitation. I find that less than 5% of administrators of Active Directory feel that they're proficient in PowerShell. And to force the entire world to use PowerShell for something that really should be in a GUI, it just doesn't make sense. Now, when I go in and I use the Administrative Center and I enable the recycle bin, it actually gives you this confirmation, right? And it says, are you sure you want to do this? Once it's been enabled, it cannot be disabled. And again, this puzzles me. I hope it puzzles you as well. First off, why am I having to enable something that seems so vital and important to Active Directory? And two, why am I being warned, okay, once you get it, you can't get rid of it? I just don't understand. And I'm sure that somewhere, somehow, Microsoft was concerned about something, maybe hardware, maybe the amount of activity that's going on with the recycle bin. But this just gives me pause. Gives me pause and says, okay, why would I not want to enable this? This seems like something that is obvious, but why would I not want to enable it? But once you get the recycle bin, especially with the new Administrative Center enabled, and you agree that, yes, I want it there, then it becomes relatively easy for you to go in, pick objects, and restore them. And with the Microsoft Recycle Bin, you're able to restore users, groups, and with groups, including the group membership, OUs, and of course with OUs, including users and groups that were in the OU, from deletion. So if I were to take the example that we talked about, where I have a project that I thought was done, and I delete an OU and all of its contents, using the recycle bin, I can restore that. So that's actually pretty nice. But there are limitations. First of all, I can't restore group policy objects or DNS. I don't know why I have groups down below, but that's an error in my slide. I apologize. But I can't restore GPOs. I can't restore DNS. And of course, with group policy, this gets really complicated. And we're going to talk about that in a minute as well. But also using the recycle bin, because it's based on some of the tombstoning and some of the things that Microsoft had in earlier versions of recovery, we have a time period that's basically available for objects, and after that time period, there's no longer available. So if we look at kind of a diagram of what Microsoft has, in essence, we see on the left that if I delete an object, I can basically undelete that, and it's not really that big of a deal. But then the object is going to have a lifetime that it becomes recycled. And this recycled really is not a good place. Many of the object properties are eliminated. Some of the key factors for objects are removed. So if you actually can get an object out of the recycled area, then you're not going to have a full object when you restore it from deletion. And then, of course, there's another process within Active Directory called the garbage collection. And when a recycled object has been there long enough, it gets physically deleted, and you can no longer restore that object from the recycle bin. So as you see, there are some significant limitations. But what do we want for an ideal? Let's kind of summarize what Microsoft does, and then let's talk about what ideal is. Recovery needs to be efficient and fast. I think using the Microsoft Administrative Console, I think they've gotten there. It actually is very nice. It's very easy. It's easy to see things. So it's not too bad at all. We need a GUI, and Microsoft now has a GUI. We need to be able to recover from deleted objects and changed objects. Well, Microsoft can recover from some deleted objects, but they can't recover from any changed objects. So this is really where the separation becomes. And if you look at your organization on things that happen, certainly users, groups, and OUs are part of that, but I want to be able to recover from a deleted group policy object. I want to be able to recover from an attribute change of a group membership. So I need to be able to have that. And then the last bullet here is something that Microsoft also doesn't provide, which they would never need to provide, is a history. I need options. And if we're looking at, for example, group membership over time, the group membership may change. So, you know, the first month I have these 5 users, the second month I have these 10 users, and then I go back to 7 users in the third month. Well, what if I wanted to go back 2 months ago? Well, I need to be able to do that. I want to be able to see the history of what the properties are for objects. And I mean, whether it be group policy, whether it be user properties, group membership, it really doesn't matter. I need to be able to do all of them. So at the beginning of this list, Microsoft is kind of hitting the mark. But as we get down towards the bottom of the list, they're not only missing the mark, I don't even think they considered it. And these are things that we have to consider. So what is this going to look like? Well, we have a tool called Recovery Manager Plus. And Recovery Manager Plus is a very efficient tool, because what we do is we obtain changes based on a baseline. So we basically take a full snapshot of your Active Directory environment, and then from that point forward, we just look at changes. And we allow you to go to any point in time, look at any object, the values of that object at that time in which the backup was taken. So we are not making full backups. We are not basically taking the system state every single time, where some of the other tools in the industry do that. And they may have reasons that they want to do that, but we feel that our solution is very efficient. It's very precise. Obviously, there's a scheduler, so it's just going to do the backups when you need it. Plus, you have the ability to do backups on the fly. One of the most important things is reporting. I think anyone that has any of our Manage Engine products can say without any doubt that we are really good at reporting. allowing you to see things very clearly and be able to get to the point. So what does Recovery Manager Plus do? Well, instead of kind of going through a bullet list, let me just show you what Recovery Manager Plus does. So as you see here, this is Recovery Manager Plus. For those of you that might have AD Manager Plus or AD Audit Plus, those are also similar type tools. And you'll see here, of course my session expired, but we'll just log back in. So we have that security built in. Isn't that a good thing? Of course, the demo gods are always out looking out for me. So when we get into Recovery Manager Plus, you'll see the main dashboard view, which has information about the objects. You know, it's kind of a summary. Here's your backup now, which we'll obviously do that soon. And then we also have different components of how you want to restore. So let's walk through some different examples. Let's walk through some things that might happen on a daily, weekly basis in your organization. So I'm going to come over here to Active Directory users and computers. And, you know, I have some different groups. I have some different users here. So let's say that I have a user, RMP1. And RMP1 obviously is a member of a group, and the user is very important, but let's say that someone comes in here and, again, whether it be on purpose or accident, deletes RMP1. Well, as an administrator, I'm not going to remember all of the groups that RMP1 was part of. I'm not going to remember the settings for RMP1. So what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to get into some environment where I can see RMP1 and put it back to the original state. So here, if I go to the recycle bin, you will notice that I have the ability to recycle all of these object types. So I'm going to get rid of all of these because I'm looking for a user, and I want to know which users have been deleted. Now you'll see here a history of users that have been deleted, and down here on 11.1 is RMP1. So if I simply select RMP1 and recycle it, that user is going to be placed back into Active Directory with all of its details. So here you'll see all the details, the summary, and if I head back into Active Directory users and computers, you'll see RMP1 is here, and voila, all of its properties are there. So this is a pretty important piece of being able to recover. Now this is what Microsoft does, and you do not have to have the Microsoft Recycle Bin enabled in order to do this, because obviously it doesn't matter because Microsoft can't do things like this. So, you know, we're able to go in and basically recover for you from a detailed state objects. But what if things are a little different? Let's say that someone comes into a user, and again, I don't know how the reasons for it, but let's say someone changes a telephone number, and the telephone number is updated. I don't think any administrator in the world is going to remember what the telephone number is for certain users. So a system needs to be able to tell you the history and needs to be able to show you what has been there for a while. Now the recycle bin isn't going to do this for me, because if I changed more than one option, I don't know which ones are correct. So what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to come in, look for the object type and even the name of the object, and search for that object. Now you'll see that there are 9 backups. So if I look at the details of each of these, you will see the backup value and the current value historically. So you'll see these things that are here. Now you'll see that the current value is 1919 and the backup value is 4848, which is, this is the number we want. So if I simply select this attribute, I can come in and restore just the telephone number from a list of old telephone numbers. So now when I go back into Active Directory and I refresh, I now have the old number back. Now I want you to grasp the power of this. This is a granular restoration of a single property of a user. And the ability to do this is not something you can do with Microsoft technology because it just doesn't get that granular. And certainly it's not going to be this obvious of what you're looking at. Now, these are just users, but things get more complicated. Let's move on to groups. So let's say that someone comes in, there's a group that has members, and someone deletes the group. Now, this is a much bigger type of problem because in this scenario, I've now deleted something that has objects inside of it, and I don't remember what those are. I mean, granted, if we do a comparison, these would be nothing more than a telephone number, but still, it's a little bit complicated. So how do I recover from this? Well, let's look at a different view here. You'll notice here that I have something called my Backup Explorer, and you'll notice that at each backup point, I'm summarizing for you what occurred in there. So you'll see if I pick on anything here, I have details about what occurred. So if I go to my latest one and I see group 1, I will see that I can revert those changes. So if I revert the deletion, this should, as it will, put back that object in Active Directory. So I'm going to do a refresh here. Group 1 is back with its members. So again, what I want you to focus on is not only do we have the ability to get something out of the recycle bin, I'm giving you the ability to look at it in so many different ways. And this is something that Microsoft does not do. Microsoft just has a bucket of deleted objects, and you have to find them still. You still have to do searches on those objects. Well, what we're doing is we're giving you a view, a very clear view. I would call this more of a report view, right, of exactly what happened at each stage along the way of Active Directory. We allow you to look at all backups, allow you to look at the last 15, look at days. So we're giving you the ability to view this information in a way that allows you to go back in time. And again, I can pick one or I can pick multiple of these and I can revert that back. So I can also browse the history of certain types of things that have occurred. So here, the history of mystery is right here, and it tells you what happened with that particular object. Okay? So again, I want you to see the differences that are occurring. Now, we've looked at users, we've looked at groups. OUs will be the same type of thing. But let's look at something that's even more complicated. Let's say that I go in and I modify group policy. So here inside of a GPO, you'll see that I have settings, and actually let's just edit this. And someone goes in, and you'll see that I'm kind of digging down a little deep in group policy. And let's say that someone changes this to 90 days. They're trying to do good, trying to increase security. So they go in and they basically modify a group policy object. First and foremost, I want you to understand that this is almost going to be impossible to see. Changes in group policy are very difficult to see. Now, for those of you that have AD Audit, you know that you can actually track this information in AD Audit. But normally what's going to occur if you do not have a tool like AD Audit is somehow someone's going to call and complain about the setting. So someone calls, says, oh my gosh, the group policy changed, but you have no idea what that old value was. And this could be a setting in group policy like a number, this could be a toggle, this could be a registry hack, this could be binary information. You never know what it's going to be in group policy. But here, with the right tool, I have the ability to go in, just select group policy, and search for those changes. Now, I'm going to have to be able to search in different ways, and I do have the ability to search in different ways, but here you can see that on 11.1 there was a change, but those are the same values. So what is the old value? Well, this is the last possible change, and you'll see there's 180 days. So with group policy, the complexity of group policy, I can actually go into a single setting in a group policy object, and in that single setting within that group policy object, I'm going to be able to update that information back to what it was. And here you'll see it's back to 180 days. So not just users, not just groups, not OUs, but we get into group policy. If we modify DNS, those things are going to be able to be restored for us. So what I'm going to challenge you to do is really evaluate your recovery from Active Directory modifications and deletions. And take a look at what Microsoft provides, and then take a look at what Recovery Manager provides. You can download Recovery Manager for free, and you can use it fully functional for a month. And I challenge you to compare the two, because what I don't want is I don't want you to be in a situation where you need to recover and you don't have the right tool in place. So we're giving you the opportunity to take advantage of Recovery Manager Plus in a side-by-side comparison to what Microsoft provides, or really what any solution provides. And I want you to see the simplicity of what we provide for a solution. Now, I do want to show you one final thing inside of Recovery Manager, which is kind of cool. So we give you this option for rollback. Now, what rollback does is rollback basically takes this Backup Explorer and exposes it to you in a different way so that you can do a wider rollback. So if I start the rollback, you'll see that I can go back in time, and I can pick something that's back in time, and let's say I go back to here. Now, what this is going to do is this is going to summarize for me everything that's occurred in this time frame. So maybe I don't know exactly when something occurred because I don't have AD audit. So I can review everything that's occurred, and then it's going to tell me, if I choose that, what's going to happen with that. So this gives you the ability to take multiple backups of time, right? This dashboard of, this dashboard of the Backup Explorer, and say, okay, I want to go back to here, and I want everything included to be involved. That's exactly what this rollback does. So extremely powerful solution for you to be able to go back up to a point in time. And it's granular. We can pick and choose what you want. I can do the entire object. I can do details of the object and the properties. And no other tool gives you this insight with this ease. So hopefully this has been very beneficial to you. Hopefully I've opened your eyes to maybe something you need to take a look at now. Hopefully you haven't had any major Active Directory issues for recovery, but I don't want you to have any issues when you need to be able to recover. Please go out, take a look at our tool. If you have any questions for me, you have my email address, and I appreciate your time. I'm going to let you get back to work. I'm going to get back to work here, and until next time, this has been Derek Melber. I want to thank everyone in the background that's been answering the questions for me on my team. They're invaluable to me when I'm doing the presentation to be able to answer those questions. And hopefully if you had any questions, you were able to answer or ask them and they were answered. If not, you can email the events team, or you can email me directly, derek@manageengine.com, and we'll get you those questions as soon as possible. So until the next time we have a webinar or seminar together, I wish you the best. And for Derek Melber and the rest of the Active Directory Solutions team, thank you and goodbye.